The members of the Marshfield High School National Honor Society and their advisor, Mr. Weisgerber, would like to welcome our superintendent, Mr. Granatino, Principal Mr. Robert Kuther, Vice Principals Ms. Kristen Brandt and Mr. William Battis, guest speaker Mr. James Merritt, and school committee members Sean Costello and Kendra Stanton Church. And especially the faculty, staff, and the inductees and their families. Thank you for everyone for joining us tonight. For the current and former members who may be among our guests, we hope this evening will remind you of the standards of excellence you are charged with maintaining as members of the nation's oldest, largest, and most prestigious student recognition program. With tonight's ceremony, our chapter is proud to induct new members, which indicates the continuing emphasis on excellence that we represent for our school and our community. Throughout the years, members of our chapter demand a great deal from themselves. In addition to the strong academic records which allow eligibility for membership, our chapter members are leaders in many student organizations, and we serve our school and community through many different activities. This year's activities have included a sneaker drive to benefit people both inside of the U.S. and overseas, a fundraiser for the Merrimack Valley natural gas disaster, a sock drive for a homeless shelter, and a holiday pajama drive, as well as providing support for our local community through everybody's individual NHS service projects. Students are required to participate in various service projects both in and outside of Marshfield High School, and we are proud of our record of accomplishment and welcome these new members who bring new energy and enthusiasm to our continuing work as National Honor Society members. Next, Grace Horn will give the evocation so that we may pause to reflect on the significance of tonight's ceremony. Grace?
Please stand. As we gather here tonight, may we all find peace and comfort in our family. May we give thanks for our many blessings and opportunities and all those that are to come. May we always remember the gifts we inherited and try the best to maintain and advance them. May every day shine with promise, effort, and friendship. Thank you.
Next, we are happy to have Superintendent of Schools Jeffrey Granatino offer remarks to the inductees and guests.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Weisgerber. And I would like to just welcome everyone here to a wonderful, wonderful event. This is one of those things when we look at what we try to do as educators and educational leaders. This is kind of the ultimate event that we want to see happen in our district. To see over 100 students earn all of the accolades and do all the work in the classroom, outside of the classroom, in the clubs, on the sports teams. It's just amazing, and I just want to congratulate you all, because you should all be very, very proud of where you are right now ready to be inducted into the National Honor Society. This is not an easy accomplishment. You are not only working in the classroom, but as I noted, you're also showing you can impact the school and your community outside of the learning environment on a daily basis. Many of you have probably read Robert Frost's poem, The Road Not Taken, and I've cited it before in the past. I went to school up in Vermont and walked along Robert Frost Trail up in Middlebury. It's a pretty cool place to go, and you think about a lot of things when you're walking up there and seeing the beauty that he saw when he was writing these poems. But The Road Not Taken, the final 3 lines, what really hit home for me as far as tying into the National Honor Society. And those lines are pretty simple, and you've probably heard them over and over, but he said that 2 roads diverged in the wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Simple 3 lines, but it really sums up what you folks have done. You took a road that is not commonly traveled by your high school peers. You took the road that called for hours of work after school with teachers to ensure you understood a concept in math or physics or history. The road less traveled took you down a path that led you to the student council, led you to youth and government, led you to community Christmas, led you to a number of different events around the town that made Marshfield better because of your efforts. You showed you were different by being able to sing in the chorus on a Wednesday night while hitting a home run on Thursday afternoon at a baseball game after scoring an A on an exam. And that's what being in the National Honor Society is about. And that's what taking that road less traveled is all about. The road that Faraz described as less traveled was that way because it's not easy to go down that road, and most don't even try. We have a number of amazing students at all of our schools, but the crew that is sitting here before us tonight are the few that have been able to combine academics, leadership, service, in a fashion that allows them to meet the expectations of our National Honor Society. You all should feel pride. You should feel joy. You should feel special. And most of all, you and your family should exult in a sense of accomplishment because it has been a team effort to get you here tonight. This recognition is a successful reflection of the effort you have been putting forth since you entered Marshfield Public Schools. You formed these habits as elementary students and continue to progress as you move your way up through the grades. While you earned this honor in the high school, the guidance of your teachers, counselors, and administrators over the years helped you get to this spot. And it's nice to see it. There's a few educators here in the audience right now that are elementary teachers, that are middle school teachers and counselors, and that's what this is all about. And not just a high school only event, but an event that is a compilation of years and years of hard work on your part. And as I mentioned before, the hours of support, love, and encouragement from your families help get you through those tough times and allow for you to be the best student and the best person you could be. Congratulations for all you have done and for your induction to the National Honor Society. And thank you so much for choosing to take the road less traveled. As you will soon see, it does indeed make all the difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Granatino. Membership into Marshfield's National Honor Society has been earned by the effective demonstration of scholarship, character, service, and leadership. The officers would now like to define these 4 principles of membership. Callista McPherson will speak on scholarship.
Scholarship denotes a commitment to learning. A student is willing to spend hours in reading and study, knowing the lasting benefits of a cultivated mind. We should continue to learn even when formal education has ended, for human education ends only with the end of life. Knowledge is one great element in life which leads to the highest success, and it can be acquired in only one way, through diligence and effort. Learning furnishes the lamp by which we read the past, the torch guiding us to an understanding the present, and the light that illuminates the future. Candidates have the charge to continually expand their world through the opportunities inherent in scholarship.
Thank you, Callista. Olivia Mazzocchi will now speak on character.
Character is the force within the individual that distinguishes each person from others. It creates for each of us our individuality, our goodness. It is that without which no one can respect oneself nor hope to attain the respect of others. It is this force of character that guides one through life and, once developed, grows steadily within. Character is achieved and not received. It is a product of constant thought and action, the daily striving to make the right choice. The problem of character is a problem of self-control. We must be in reality of what we wish to appear to others, to be rather than to seem. By demonstrating such qualities as respect, responsibility, trustworthiness, fairness, caring, and citizenship, we may hope to prove by example that we value character.
Thank you, Olivia. Teddy Nelson will now speak on service.
My pillar is service. Service can be established in the routine of the day's work, where many opportunities arise to help others, both at school and in the community. A willingness to work for the benefit of those in need, without monetary compensation or public recognition, is the quality we seek in our membership and promote for the entire student body. We are committed to volunteering our time and talents to the creation of a better tomorrow.
Thank you, Teddy. Jackie Roderick will now speak on leadership.
a wholesome influence on the school. In taking initiative in the classroom and in school activities, the real leader strives to train and aid others to reach their common goals of success. The price of leadership is sacrifice, the willingness to yield one's personal interests for the interests of others. A leader has self-confidence and will go forward when others hesitate. No matter what power and resources may exist in a school, community, or nation, they are ineffectual without the guidance of a wise leader. Leadership is always needed. Thus, to lead is a meaningful and substantive charge to each of our members.
At this time, will the new inductees please rise? Raise your right hand and repeat the pledge. For all members of the National Honor Society, young and old in the audience, please join us and renew your pledge. Please join me in reciting the pledge. I pledge to uphold the high purposes of the National Honor Society, to which I have been selected. I will be true to the principles for which it stands. And will maintain and encourage the high standards of scholarship, leadership, service, and character. Thank you and congratulations. And now, please welcome our principal, Mr. Robert Cooper, who will offer congratulations and remarks to the board.
Thank you, Grace. So what you didn't get to see about 15 minutes ago was Michael walk out of the student dining room with his binder in his hand, and he says, "I'm going to practice, Mr. Cooper." And he walked down the hall, this end of the hall, and he started speaking to the door. Hands moving, walking around. I was like, "Michael, go for it," right? And I stood there and I watched and I thought to myself, isn't it really fun and unique to watch our young men and women step into roles of leadership, to stand before a gathering of 300, 400 people, and to handle themselves the way they did, or the way they didn't. Can we recognize their leadership? So Grace, you said any members of the NHS from previous years, or members nationally from any other charters, would they please stand up? Miss Brandt said, "Should I stand up?" And she didn't say that to me, she said it to Mr. Battis. And Mr. Battis is like, "No!" Right? And I'm sitting there listening to him go, "Stand up!" while you're leading the oath, right? So, would anybody, other than our newest members, that is a member of the National Honor Society, would you just stand so we can recognize you? So anybody from past years, please stand and be recognized. Our newest members, look around the room. So you don't even think about it right now, but 20 or 25 years from now, you might be in this auditorium, and it might be your son or daughter sitting in that chair, and you might be standing back there. Congratulations to all of our previous members. About a month ago in the lobby out here, all the classes gathered for the annual shopping cart competition for Pride Week, run by Student Council. Jared Medeiros, one of our inductees tonight. Stuco president is there. And each class brings a cart out, and the cart is representative of something that has to do with doing something in Duxbury on Thanksgiving Day. Okay? And so the senior class wheeled their cart out. The seniors obviously have 4 years experience, and so they really worked hard on their cart. And they created a time capsule inside their cart. And they opened their time capsule up with 4 quotes that they had heard at Marshfield High School, which just happened to be all the things that I say on Twitter all the time. So I got hashtag awesome, hashtag well done, hashtag we are Marshfield, and then Callie Wine very snidely said, "You can't teach an empty seat." For those that have ever heard my attendance messages, you can't teach an empty seat. Tonight, we celebrate with 117 young men and women from our high school the fact that they really have never left the seat empty. That they've gotten up every morning and come through the door, sometimes at 6 a.m., sometimes at 7:14 a.m. Occasionally at 7:17 a.m., but not often at 7:17. They've left the building probably at 9 o'clock at night. Moms and dads, you've probably picked up here at 9:30, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at some point in time. And you've come and said, boy, it's been a long day. And those long days that started a long time ago, inside that cart were 5 shirts from 5 elementary schools, where they started to form the habits that are played out today. We began to lay the foundation for today's celebration. And so when I hear, they laughed, they said, "You can't teach an empty seat," and Jared laughed pretty loudly, and they all thought that was pretty coy, but they were having fun with some of my sayings. I laughed and thought to myself, isn't it real though? And tonight we celebrate the hard work and effort of you. In that celebration is also a piece that we've really been talking about a lot this year, about the fact that we are a community. That We Are Marshfield really stands for something. It stands for a collective group of people who have come together with one focus to be the best we can be in everything we do. And while we do that, to make sure that we take care of each other. And so my challenge to you as new members of the National Honor Society is to continue what you're doing and always remember to care for the person sitting next to you. If we do that collectively as a high school, we can do that collectively with our community, and if we do that collectively with our community, our world has to be a better place. And that's what we're really all about. So I thank moms and dads, we thank you for the awesome honor of working with such great students. Students, I am so proud of you. I'll give you a hashtag, I'm proud of you. I taped you taking the oath, so when you're standing there and you see yourself tomorrow on Twitter, you'll be like, I can't believe he did it again, right? And at the same time, know that your accomplishments are significant and that your community collectively as Marshfield is very proud of you. I do want to thank, we have some school committee members here tonight with us. Mr. Costello is here and Ms. Stetson Campbell is here. I want to thank them both for being here. It takes not just the people on this side of the room, the amazing faculty and staff in our building, but it takes leadership at the political level and at the town level to bring this about too. So if we could just recognize the 2 school committee members. We're now going to go through the fun part of the night. All right, so what we're going to do, students, you're going to come up this side of the auditorium. You're going to come across the stage to receive your insignia. For those who stood up, if you still have your pin, did you wear your pin? Did anybody wear their pin tonight? Any past National Honor Society members wear their pin tonight? You still have your pin, that would be the question. You're thinking, do I have that? Well, you're going to receive your pin, you're going to receive a plaque, you're going to receive a card, all things that signify that you're a member of National Honor Society. There are a lot of things in the pillars that you have to do to maintain that, and do it well. And we'll have a big celebration tonight. Thank you very much. We're going to start to
Thank you, Principal Kuther. Will the first group of inductees please assemble, and as your name is called, please step forward onto the stage and receive your certificate of membership. And we ask that you all hold your applause until the end, and everybody has been recognized.
Portia Chambers is accompanied tonight by her parents, is involved in gymnastics, mock trial, and key club, and would like to recognize Mrs. Jennings, her Spanish 4 and Spanish 5 teacher. Jabelle Clark is accompanied tonight by her parents, and would like to recognize Miss Gage, her math teacher junior year. Jared Medeiros is accompanied tonight by his mother, is a part of student council and ultimate frisbee, and would like to recognize Mr. Kopp, his junior U.S. history teacher and senior year streetball teacher. Matt McGrath is accompanied tonight by his parents, is involved in boys hockey, student council, and ultimate frisbee, and would like to recognize Mr. Cup, his history teacher junior year. Kelly Smith is accompanied tonight by her parents and brother, is involved in soccer, health professionals club, and lacrosse, and would like to recognize Mr. Cup. Angie Williams is accompanied tonight by her parents, is involved in class officers, softball, and basketball, and would like to recognize Ms. Flanagan, her PE teacher. Liz Abel is accompanied tonight by her mother and siblings, is a part of Drama Club, Mock Trial, GSA, and ASL, and would like to recognize Ms. Flanagan, her PE teacher freshman year. Joe Adams is accompanied tonight by his parents, is junior class president, and is involved in peer leaders and boys cross-country track and field. He would like to recognize Mrs. Salamoni, his Spanish teacher sophomore and junior year. Gianna Almeida is accompanied tonight by her parents and brothers, is involved in winter and spring track, peer leaders, and her ambassadors, and would like to recognize Mrs. Howerton, her biology teacher freshman year. Teresa Anderson is accompanied tonight by her parents and siblings, is involved in drama club, Future Health Professionals Club, and competitive dance. She would like to recognize Mrs. Palladino. Emily Babloni is accompanied tonight by her parents and brother, is involved in Girl Up, Fashion, and Art Club, and would like to recognize Ms. Sell, her Art 1 teacher. Nicholas Batista is accompanied tonight by his mother and stepfather, is involved in volleyball, green team, and Future Med Professionals Club, and would like to recognize Ms. Burns, his chemistry teacher sophomore year.
Kebe Ramshan is accompanied by their parent and grandparent. They participate in the Gender Sexuality Alliance, the math team, and the marching band. They would like to recognize Mr. Raymond, their honors English teacher sophomore year. Nicole Bergeron is accompanied by her parents. She participates in lacrosse, peer leaders, and the St. Christine's Church. She would like to recognize Mr. Dwyer, her health teacher freshman and junior year. Daria Braithwaite is accompanied by her parents and her brother. She is a member of the art club and design team, and she would like to recognize Ms. Bandera, her freshman and junior year teacher. Jenny Brown is accompanied by her mom. She is a member of indoor track and field, outdoor track and field, and cross country. She would like to recognize Mr. Raymond, her English teacher sophomore year. Benjamin Birch is accompanied by his parents, sister, and grandparents. He is a member of soccer, track, and Boy Scouts. He would like to recognize Mr. LeClaire, his science teacher. Jessie Caldwell is accompanied by her parents. She is a member of gymnastics, field hockey, cheerleaders, and DECA. She would like to recognize Mr. Raymond, her English teacher sophomore year. Maisie Carroll is a member of girls varsity ice hockey, and she would like to recognize Mrs. McClellan, her English teacher freshman year. Jessica Carusa is accompanied by her family, grandparents, family, friends, and friends. She is a member of softball, and she would like to recognize Miss Good, her history teacher sophomore year. Allison Kasler is accompanied by her dad. She is a member of Drama Club, Key Club, and her ambassadors. She would like to recognize Profe Milan, her Spanish teacher freshman year. Kate Chabra is accompanied by his parents. He is a member of football, lacrosse, and DECA. He would like to recognize Mr. Stanford, his marketing teacher sophomore and junior year. Olivia Clapp is accompanied by her mom, dad, grandma, and two sisters. She is a member of gymnastics and peer leaders, and she would like to recognize Mr. Raymond, her English teacher sophomore year. Molly Cleveland is accompanied by her mom and dad. She is a member of gymnastics and peer leaders, and she would like to recognize Mrs. Norton, her honors chemistry teacher sophomore year.
Sophia Coggeshall, she's accompanied by her parents, brother, grandparents, and aunt. She participates in field hockey, lacrosse, and is a peer leader. And she would like to recognize Ms. Consolati, her sophomore year math teacher. Taylor Conley is accompanied by her parents. She participates in drama club, key club, and the marching band. And she would like to recognize Ms. Howerton, her freshman year science teacher. Stephen Kahn is accompanied by his mother. He participates in youth and government, peer leaders, is on the basketball team, and would like to recognize Mr. Galvin, his world cultures teacher. Emma Conley is accompanied by her mom, dad, and 2 brothers. She plays volleyball and would like to recognize Mr. Stanford, her business and marketing teacher and sophomore and junior year. Ruby Corkum is accompanied by her mom and dad. She participates in the ASL club and would like to recognize Mrs. Howerton, her biology teacher freshman year. Jessica Crust is accompanied by her parents, brother, and grandparents. She participates in Key Club and would like to recognize Ms. Bandera, her Microsoft Office 9th grade and 10th grade teacher. Lexi Dahlquist is accompanied by her mom, dad, and brother. She participates in Key Club, basketball, and lacrosse, and would like to recognize Mrs. Battis, our 9th grade health teacher. Nicholas Damon is accompanied by his mom and dad. He participates in Key Club, D&D Club, and Games Club, and would like to recognize Mr. Jean, his physics teacher junior year. Sasha Damon is accompanied by her sister. She participates in Youth and Government Executive and Student Council, and would like to recognize Ms. Contrino, her sophomore year English teacher. Colby DeGrosse is accompanied by his parents. He participates in varsity soccer and spring track and field, and he would like to recognize Mr. Ross's English teacher freshman year. Kayla Denholm is accompanied by her mom and dad, and she participates in nothing at the moment. She would like to recognize Mr. Whitaker, her Algebra 2 teacher junior year. Erica Doyle is accompanied by her mom, dad, and brother. She participates in indoor and outdoor track and field and peer leaders, and would like to recognize Mr. Raymond, her sophomore English teacher.
Alyssa Fleming is accompanied by her parents and grandparents, is active in Marshfield's varsity soccer, and would like to recognize Ms. Gage, her current pre-calculus teacher. Mike Bowie is accompanied by his parents and is active in football and lacrosse, and would like to recognize Mr. Gross, his freshman year English teacher. Marcus Forrester is accompanied by his parents and is active in football, DECA, and baseball, and would like to recognize Ms. Bernard. Emma Gagne is accompanied by her parents and brother and is active in girls basketball, American Sign Language Club, and would like to recognize Mr. Fisher, her basketball coach. Troy Gallagher is accompanied by his parents and is active in student council, varsity soccer, varsity track, and peer leaders, and would like to recognize Ms. West, his Spanish 3 teacher. Sarah Garber is accompanied by her mom, is active in Key Club in the Marshall Airs, and would like to recognize Mr. Weisgerber, her U.S. history teacher junior year. Emily Gill Martin is accompanied by her mom's stepdad, brother, dad, stepmom, and grandmother, and is active in softball and her ambassadors, and would like to recognize Ms. Burns, her sophomore year chemistry teacher. Callie Gilmore is accompanied by her parents and is active in varsity lacrosse, and would like to recognize Mr. Frost, her freshman year English teacher. Jaslyn Grindle is accompanied by her parents and is active in drama club, and would like to recognize Ms. Scallon, her Theater 1 and 2 teacher. Brianna Hastry is accompanied by her parents and is active in drama club and is the secretary of class of 2020. I would like to recognize Ms. O'Connell, her current AT language teacher. Dylan Hazard is accompanied by his parents, siblings, and grandparents, and is active in the gaming club and martial arts, and would like to recognize Mr. Merritt. Max Heberlein is accompanied by his parents and is active in soccer, youth and government, and peer leaders, and would like to recognize John Costello, the government advisor.
Matthew Hines is accompanied by his parents and grandparents. He participates in Key Club and hockey, and we'd like to recognize Ms. Alonji, his English teacher in freshman year. James Hirschfield is accompanied by his parents. He participates in soccer, and he'd like to recognize Mrs. Battis, his health teacher. Madison Huntington is accompanied by her parents and brother. She's a part of the Dance Factory Elite Company and she'd like to recognize Mr. Raymond, her sophomore year English teacher. Jonathan Jordan is accompanied by his parents. He participates in hockey, and he'd like to recognize Ms. Renard, his history teacher in freshman year. Audrey Keenan is accompanied by her mother. She participates in drama club and 4-H, and she'd like to recognize Ms. Burns, her chemistry teacher in sophomore year. Andrew Kelly is accompanied by his parents. He participates in cross country, track, and band, and he'd like to recognize Ms. Kenny, his computer science teacher in freshman, sophomore, and junior year. Mary Kelly cannot be here tonight, but she is a part of hockey, field hockey, and peer leaders, and she'd like to recognize Ms. McClellan, her English teacher in freshman year. Sarah Kelly is accompanied by her parents. She participates in high school and club soccer, as well as works at Little Munchkin's Child Care Center in Scituate, and she'd like to recognize Mr. Dwyer, her health teacher in freshman year. Dana Keneally is accompanied by her parents. She participates in student council, mock trial, and track and field, and she'd like to recognize Ms. Catrino, her English teacher in sophomore year. Patrick King is accompanied by his parents. He participates in baseball, and he'd like to recognize Mr. Raymond, his sophomore year English teacher. Andrew Kurticke is accompanied by his parents. He participates in cross country, track, Key Club, and DECA, and he'd like to recognize Senora Salamoni, his Spanish teacher in sophomore and junior year. Catherine Lamont is accompanied by her parents and siblings. She participates in lacrosse and also works at Little Munchkin's Daycare Center, and she'd like to thank Mr. Dwyer, her health teacher in 9th and 11th grade.
Victoria Lauria is accompanied tonight by her parents, is involved in varsity soccer, varsity basketball, and peer leaders. She would like to recognize Mrs. McClellan, her English teacher freshman year, and her homeroom teacher. Kayla Leary is accompanied tonight by her parents and siblings, is involved in cross-country, track, and band, and would like to recognize Mrs. Timlin, her junior year teacher and homeroom advisor. Jake Lesperance is accompanied tonight by his parents, is involved in soccer and DECA, and would like to recognize Ms. Burns, his chemistry teacher sophomore year. Andrew McDonald is accompanied tonight by his parents, is involved in lacrosse and golf, and would like to recognize Ms. Tabaji, his English teacher sophomore and junior year. Erin Mahoney is accompanied tonight by her parents, and is involved in indoor track and field, Key Club, and her ambassadors. She would like to recognize Mrs. Battis, her health teacher for 9th and 11th grade. Evan Malios is accompanied tonight by his parents and aunt, is involved in basketball, and would like to recognize Mr. Dwyer, his 9th grade health teacher. Sophia Mamet is accompanied tonight by her parents and her nana, is involved in drama club and AFS, and would like to recognize Senora Salomon, her Spanish teacher sophomore and junior year. Paige Manning is accompanied tonight by her parents, her sister, and her grandmother, is involved in cheerleading and St. Christine's religious education. She would like to recognize Mr. Raymond, her 10th grade English teacher. Caroline Markley is accompanied tonight by her parents, is involved in lacrosse, and would like to recognize Mrs. Dinsmore, her art teacher freshman year. Jessica Martin is accompanied tonight by her parents and her brother, is involved in ambassadors and Keystone Community Service, and would like to recognize Ms. O'Dowd. Grace McAlpine is accompanied tonight by her parents and siblings. She is involved in AFS, Key Club, and mock trial, and would like to recognize Ms. Consolati, her Algebra 2 teacher, sophomore year. Catherine McDonald is accompanied tonight by her parents, is involved in field hockey and ASL, and would like to recognize Mr. Raymond, her English teacher, sophomore year. Kelsey McNamara is accompanied tonight by her parents, and is involved in club volleyball, church service project, and holiday ball. And would like to recognize Mr. Gallagher, her history teacher, sophomore year.
Lily McNeese is accompanied by her parents. She participates in softball, ASL club, and future medical professional club. She would like to recognize Ms. Dinsmore, her art teacher freshman and sophomore year. Kate McNeil is accompanied by her parents. She participates in varsity soccer and peer leaders. She would like to recognize Ms. Alonji, her freshman year English teacher. James Meehan is accompanied by his parents. He participates in jazz band and winter track. He would like to recognize Miss Contrino, his honors English teacher sophomore year. Brianna Melchionda is accompanied by her parents. She participates in softball and violin and would like to recognize her anatomy and physiology teacher, Mrs. Pitts. Stephen Merrick is accompanied by his parents, grandparents, and sister. He participates in youth and government, mock trial, and marching band. He would like to recognize Mrs. Healy, his U.S. history teacher, sophomore year. Shelby Mills is accompanied by her parents. She participates in drama club and would like to recognize Mrs. Pitts, her anatomy teacher. Riley Moykins is accompanied by her mother. She participates in Key Club, math team, and the swim team. She would like to recognize Mrs. Kenny, her AP computer science teacher. Eva Montalto is accompanied by her mom and dad. She is a member of Brand Ambassadors, peer leaders, in the History Club. She would like to recognize Ms. Bandera, her freshman and sophomore year business teacher. Megan Murphy is accompanied by her parents. She participates in lacrosse, youth and government, and peer leaders. She would like to recognize Ms. Burns, her chemistry teacher, sophomore year. Rachel Murphy is accompanied by her parents. She is a member of peer leaders in Project Reach. She would like to recognize Mrs. Lehman, her sophomore and junior year French teacher. Ellen Merger is accompanied by her parents. She is a member of soccer, basketball, and peer leaders. She would like to recognize Mrs. McClellan, her English teacher freshman year.
Wiley Merger is accompanied by his mother, father, sister, grandfather, and grandmother. He does not participate in anything at the moment and would like to recognize Mrs. Consolati, his algebra 2 teacher. Remy Nyland is accompanied by her parents and grandmother. She participates in field hockey and Girl Up and would like to recognize Ms. Downs, her math teacher sophomore. Jessie O'Brien is accompanied by her parents. She participates in drama club and martial arts and would like to recognize Ms. Scanlon, her drama club teacher. Lauren O'Callahan is accompanied by her mom and dad. She participates in peer leaders, ambassadors, and field hockey. We would like to recognize Ms. Vadas, her 9th grade health teacher. Colin O'Connor is accompanied by his parents. He participates in Invent Team. And would like to recognize Ms. Bowman, his Spanish 3 teacher. Trey O'Connor is accompanied by his dad, mom, and sister. He participates in basketball and would like to recognize Mr. Frost, his freshman year English teacher. Jack Pesco is accompanied by his parents. He participates in cross country, track, and jazz band, and would like to recognize Mrs. Norton, his chemistry teacher. Justin Petrillo is accompanied by his mom. He participates in soccer, peer leaders, and basketball, and would like to recognize Mr. Frost, his English teacher freshman year. Caitlin Phelps is accompanied by her parents. She participates in DECA and peer leaders, and would like to recognize Mrs. Lehman, her French teacher sophomore year and junior year. Daniel Pierce is accompanied by his mother. He participates in MHS Jazz Band, Boy Scouts of America, Holy Family Catholic Church in Duxbury, and would like to recognize Mr. Galvin, his world cultures teacher. Julia Pitts is accompanied by her parents. She participates in indoor and outdoor track, history club, and DECA, and would like to recognize Mrs. Healy, her history teacher sophomore year. Caroline Pazerski is accompanied by her parents, siblings, grandmother, and uncle, and she participates in peer leaders. She's on the peer leaders advisory board. She does field hockey, and she's in Brand Ambassadors, and she would like to recognize Ms. Olani, her freshman year English teacher.
Maria Ramos is accompanied by her parents and grandmother, is active in AFS and Key Club, and would like to recognize Mr. Whitaker, her Algebra 2 teacher, junior year. Vaughn Warden is accompanied by his parents and grandparents, is active in football, DECA, and youth government, and would like to recognize Mr. Radin, his sophomore year English teacher. Anna Robinson is accompanied by her parents and sibling, and is active in wrestling, ultimate frisbee, and volleyball, and would like to recognize Miss Gable, her 5th grade teacher at South River School. Holly Schreiber is accompanied by her mom and dad, and is active in peer leaders, student council, and on the varsity field hockey team. And would like to recognize Ms. Lehman, her French teacher, sophomore and junior year. Tyler Slate is accompanied by his guardians and is active in American Sign Language Club, Mark Trial, and board game clubs, and would like to recognize Ms. Pitts. Alex Spano is accompanied by his parents and siblings and is active in Marshall basketball, Marshall event team, Marshall math team, and ASL club, and would like to recognize Ms. Consolati, his Algebra 2 teacher sophomore year. Jocelyn Safier is accompanied by her parents and is active in gymnastics, volunteering at the Marshall Animal Shelter and Student Council, and would like to recognize Ms. Kyo, her geometry math teacher sophomore year. Oliver Stafford is accompanied by his parents and is active in soccer, basketball, and youth and government, and would like to recognize Mr. Galvin, his freshman year world cultures teacher. Minnie Stephenson is accompanied by her two parents and is active in drama club, martial arts, and wind ensemble, and would like to recognize Ms. Rodolphe, her freshman year English teacher. Erin Sweeney is accompanied by her parents and is active in DECA, peer leaders, and Project Reach, and would like to recognize Ms. Katrina. Kelsey Sweeney is accompanied by her parents and is active in Drama Club, Key Club, ASL, and would like to recognize Ms. Palladino, her freshman year world cultures teacher. Jeffrey Thomas is accompanied by his parents and sister and is active in football, indoor track, and rugby, and would like to recognize Mr. Grayland, his marine fabrication teachers.
Sean Tobin is accompanied by his parents. He participates in jazz band, cross country, and track, and he'd like to recognize Ms. Contrino, his English teacher sophomore year. Nick Valiente is accompanied by his parents. He participates in cross country and indoor and outdoor track, and he'd like to recognize Mr. Leclerc, his biology honors freshman year teacher. Olivia Valiente is accompanied by her parents. She participates in drama club, track, and martial arts, and she'd like to recognize Ms. Scanlon, her theater teacher. Daniel Waite is accompanied by his parents. He participates in class officers, youth government, and basketball, and he'd like to recognize Mr. Weisgerber. Ethan Walker is accompanied by his parents and grandparents. He participates in DECA, Student Council, and Makers Club, and he'd like to recognize Ms. Kenny, his programming teacher for the past 3 years. Michael Walsh is accompanied by his parents. He participates in basketball, and he'd like to recognize Mr. Whitaker, his Algebra 2 sophomore year teacher. Colby Weber is accompanied by his parents and siblings. He participates in varsity soccer, and he'd like to recognize Ms. Alondri, his English teacher in 9th grade. Abigail White is accompanied by her parents and siblings. She participates in Key Club, tennis, and ballet, and she'd like to recognize Ms. Contrino, her English teacher in sophomore year. Megan Wilner is accompanied by her parents and brother. She participates in Key Club, Project Reach, and figure skating, and she'd like to recognize Ms. Consolati, her math teacher. Celia Wissamy is accompanied by her parents. She participates in drama club, and she'd like to recognize Ms. Norton, her chemistry teacher for the past 2 years. James Zawalik is accompanied by his parents and his grandparents, as well as his sister. He participates in band, cheerleading, and fashion club, and he'd like to recognize Ms. Burns, his 10th grade chemistry teacher. Let's give a final round of applause for all the Now I'd like to present our guest speaker. There's no introduction I could give you all that would totally encompass Mr. Merritt, the environmental science speaker here at MHS. Mr. Merritt's multifaceted personality is what makes his class, his teaching style, and he himself so incredibly intriguing and interactive. As his student this year, I've had the pleasure to learn about his multiple cross-country summer road trips, his fondness for common loons and hellgrammite, and most importantly, his love for the world around us. I've personally never met someone more environmentally in touch with our universe. Always deeply perceptive, Mr. Merritt has served as a navigational guide for our class this year, bringing a sense of tranquility, understanding, and support to each and every one of his students. Mr. Merritt doesn't just push us to be the best people we can be, he also shapes us into curious, free-thinking students of our world. Every day we come into the classroom to learn about something new, whether that's eutrophication, thermodynamics, or the famous Lloydian concept, tragedy of the commons. We're forced to face the realities brought on by an ever-changing ecosphere, ranging from the impact of our ecological footprint to the unrecognized privileges we have living in a wealthy country like America. We are taught how to relate the 4 pillars of sustainability, nutrient cycling, reliance on solar energy, population control, and biodiversity, to our lives. Mr. Merritt's class is, in its entirety, an application of education to our world. Demonstrating the 4 key values of National Honor Society and serving as a kind, supportive presence in Marshfield High School, the NHS officers believe Mr. Merritt is the perfect choice to speak to our incoming scholars. So, without further ado, please join me in warmly welcoming Mr. Merritt.
Some 30 years ago, when I was your age, I never would have imagined that I would have an opportunity to speak to an audience like this. Unlike you students here tonight, I was never inducted into the National Honor Society. I never really performed that well in school. I talked way too much, and I was mischievous to say the least. Teachers also said I was a hopeless fool. But yet, in spite of all that, I stand here tonight, and I want to offer my most sincere thanks to the officers of the Society for the privilege to address you here this evening. With that being said, I get 10 minutes to share some of the wisdom that I've acquired over the last 30 years. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a trained biologist with an undeniable passion for the natural world. Biology is the study of life, and through my studies, I've learned life is what you make of it. Find what it is that tickles your soul, and pursue that with passion and zeal. This is your quest. I challenge you to be curious and discover your personal legend. Let that saturate Sylvian for a second. Personally, my soul is tickled most when I'm immersed in the wilderness. Many miles from any road, no lights. I'm consumed by the sounds of nature, where the freshness of the pristine air surrounds me. All of my senses are alert and my biological rhythms are in harmony with the environment. It's at these moments in time when I experience the eminent awareness. It piques my curiosity of my surroundings in the natural world. It's in the wilderness that allowed me to find my personal legend. Tonight I thought I'd share with you a few tales from my captain's log or my travel journals. These summaries are part of the strange festering funk that stained my mind and created the reverent naturalist that you see here tonight. As long as I can remember, I've always been a geek and I've been fascinated by the stars. In the darkness, the stars are so bright. I enjoyed the constellations as they rotated across the sky as time marched on, late into tomorrow. On a clear night, you can see the Milky Way painted across the endless points of light in the sky. Staring at the stars, free from the trappings of the modern world, I thought about how lucky it was to be alive. We were once the proverbial twinkle in our parents' eye, like the glimmer of a distant star written in that celestial story of time. We're all winners. We experience time as linear phenomena, past, present, and future. However, studies of quantum physics allow us to understand that time is a human creation. The very moment that we're experiencing right now encompasses all the possible moments in the universe, that the universe has conspired to form you. You are the result of half of your parents' DNA, the intertwined double helix that are the instructions to your physical being. It's the simple fact that we're here that makes us winners, because we're alive. What would be the alternative? For me, I believe winning in life is to explore it through as many grand adventures as time will allow me. If we're all winners, what might that mean to you? Just take a second to let that filter into your noggin. Friends, this is your moment. I challenge you to discover your personal legend. Years ago when I was on a road trip after college, I read this book called The Alchemist by Paul Coelho. Something in that book resonated with me. Perhaps it was the knowledge that we're all winners or the concept of a personal legend. On that road trip to Yosemite National Park in 1998, I connected with something much bigger than myself. After winding through the steep switchbacks of the Sierra Nevada mountains, we drove through a tunnel on California Route 129 to Yosemite National Park. Luckily, there was a turnout right outside that tunnel because the aesthetic beauty of the world was on full display. There were these narrow valleys, glacier-cut valleys, with dramatic steep cliffs of granite on both sides. On the left was El Capitan, a 7,569-foot straight cliff with half dome, an 8,839-foot rock dome structure in the distance. The meandering Merced River flowed through the grassy meadows with diverse hardwood forests on the valley floor, and dense pockets of conifers climbed up the valley walls. All of this was complemented by the narrow, towering Yosemite Falls on the left and the smaller but no less dramatic Bridal Veil Falls on the right. On that hot June day, the glacial runoff plummeted off the edges, spraying the valley with streams of white mist. At that moment, my heart was soaring, but yet my mind was soothed. Instantly awestruck, I felt that I was home and I had a clarity of a purpose. The purpose being to share this discovery perspective that I have experienced through the lens of science. Though I didn't know it at the time, this is where I first learned of my personal legends. My longest immersion into the wilderness was an 11 days and nights in the Boundary Waters National Park of Minnesota during the summer of 2004. I paddled 110 miles through 12 lakes, 3 rivers, and had 8 portages, camping under the stars in the Great North Woods each night. On July 11th, in 2004, the second day of the expedition, located just north of New York Island, I was able to witness and be an audience member for an elemental nature show. It started at sunset with a rumble like a train in the distance, and it transformed into the roar of a million bloodthirsty mosquitoes at twilight. This brought out squadrons of dragonflies. They were dashing and dancing, in a frenzy devouring as many mosquitoes as they could. That's when I saw the mayflies. If you haven't heard about this dramatic mating ritual, you should know that the swarms are so large and dense that they can be seen from many miles away on the Doppler radar. The mayflies, they had a distinct appearance. They were 18 to 21 millimeters long. They had striped abdomens with 3 long tails. They had 2 striped legs on the dorsal side of their thorax, a round head with a bold white stripe on their mandibles. I later identified them as the green-darted dragonfly. Their mating ritual had a distinct pattern. They would oscillate up and down. They would raise 3 or 4 feet and then glide back down to the earth. Over time, 3 or 4 females, they would stand clean a single male, hoping to perform that ritualistic mating dance. After several hours, they would join the male's abdomen and they inverted and they flew straight up. Throughout this ritual, I distinctly remember nature's orchestra at play. The sounds that evening, they started with the croak and the chirp of the frogs. It was followed by the whispering pop of the emerging adult mayflies. It wasn't long for the fish to join in, and the random jumps of the small fish soon exploded into a frenzy of splashing gluttony as huge bass and walleye showed off their predator status. Within an hour, the fish had their fill, and the hum of the mosquitoes it returned. All the while, the mayflies still had many hours to go to still hatch. The sheer number of the bugs, it was mind-boggling. That next day was gruesome. Hundreds of thousands of exoskeletons littered the water. It was like paddling through the film on the top of pudding. Now, the scientist in me, I wanted to collect a specimen. I was contemplating how many ways I could quantify the mass of this extreme episode that I just witnessed. But luckily, it was early in the adventure, and most discoveries still awaited, and I pondered the meaning of this amazing event that I witnessed. Over that next week or so in the wilderness, I concluded that I relate to the story of life in a very unique way. I began to understand that the interconnectedness of all life, the complex interactions of species with one another. I thought it absolutely amazing how the birds had timed their migration to the feast of these mayflies, and how the nutrients from the river bottoms and the lakes, they brought forth to the surface and then circulated around the ecosystem. I saw that individually, each species had a specific role to play in the larger dynamic that was the mayfly hatch. We all have a role to play in life. Identifying what that role is the beginning of living one's personal legend. So how does one accomplish this? Now, I can't tell you which personal legend is. Only you can discover it. As Plato said, know thyself. Or as I might say, find your inner freak and embrace it. Know your truth. To do so, you must ask yourself many questions. Who am I at the core? What values define my character? What am I naturally curious about? Right now, all of you are at a point in your life when you should be trying to experience as many new things as you possibly can. It could be travel, drama, sports, taking electives like street law or forensics. Hopefully all these activities, they are enjoying to you and they endeavor you to discover more. Pay attention to those aha moments. Analyze them and listen to them. Know your strengths and your weaknesses. This way you can surround yourself with people whose strengths are your weaknesses. We are social creatures. Enlist positive, wise teammates. Strive to always be an asset to the team and not a liability. The human body has 2 ears and 1 mouth. You should listen more than you speak. How does a doctor know that someone's alive? Well, they take your pulse. Listen to your heart, listen to your heart, and listen to your heart. I personally have found it to be a compass. You know what I mean. This is when all of your senses align and your heart might skip a beat, or time just slows on down. Most importantly, I encourage you to follow your dreams. You've already won the most important race of your life. Believe in yourself, you're already winners. This is your time, seize the moment. So tonight here on December 12th, 2018, I challenge you to discover your personal legend. Find what it is that tickles your soul and pursue that with a passion and zeal. Life is short and one grand adventure. Go forth and explore it. Now let these curious words from a reverend naturalist be the funk that forever stains your mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Merrick, for your message tonight. The members of the National Honor Society and their advisor would especially like to thank our families, MHS administrators, faculty, and staff, guidance counselors, Ms. Kathleen Bandera, Mr. Nick Landry, Mr. John Kenny, and the Quip Center for helping make this night possible. I would also like to thank our advisor, Mr. Weisgerber, and the members of the Induction Ceremony Committee for their hard work in organizing this year's ceremony. Please join me in thanking them with a round of applause. As for the new members, I can't wait to see your guys' creativity, positivity, and progress that accompanies you in the time in our society. Taking on the responsibility to be the leaders in our classroom, school, and our community is not an easy task. But I know wholeheartedly you will all rise to the occasion and continue to uphold our standards of scholarship, character, service, and leadership. Thank you all for attending our NHS induction ceremony. In just a moment, the new inductees will exit, after which you are all invited to join us in the cafeteria for a reception in their honor. There will be desserts, but before doing so, please join me in one more time with a round of applause for our new inductees. Thank you, and we will see everybody in the student dining.